Thank you, Your Honor. Will you join me in a moment of silence, please? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, it's a special evening tonight when we get to honor talk about the National Night Out. I'd like to have Christy Pankras and Judy Wilson to come up and join me. Now, the mic is now on. Christy and Judy, can you introduce our other people here?
Sure. We have Jeff Imparato, who is a volunteer chair of National Night Out, and we also have Nikki Roberts, who is a volunteer co-chair.
Thank you very much. And you know, this is an annual event. We have a number of people sitting here in the front. We'll have you stand up a bit, so you'll be on television at that time. But first, we'll read the proclamation. Whereas the National Association of Town Watch and Target are sponsoring a unique nationwide crime, drug, and violence prevention program on August 9, 2014, entitled National Night Out, and whereas the 31st Annual National Night Out provides a unique opportunity for Topeka, Shawnee County to join forces with thousands of other communities across the country in promoting cooperative police community crime prevention efforts, and whereas Safe Streets plays a vital role in assisting the Topeka Police Department, the Shawnee County Sheriff's Office, and the Shawnee County District Attorney's Office throughout the year fighting with joint crime, drug, and violence prevention efforts in Topeka, Shawnee County, and is supporting National Night Out 2014 locally. And whereas it is essential that all citizens of Topeka, Shawnee County be aware of the importance of crime prevention programs and impact that their participation can have reducing crime, drugs, and violence in Topeka, Shawnee County. And whereas police community partnerships, neighborhood events, safety, awareness, and cooperation are important themes of the National Night Out program. Now therefore I, Larry Wolgast, Mayor of the City of Topeka, do hereby proclaim Saturday, August 9, 2014 as National Night Out in Topeka, Shawnee County, and call upon all citizens to do your part by participating in your neighborhood effort. Okay, now who's going to speak and tell a little bit how many are there? Go ahead.
So far, we have 67 neighborhoods signed up to participate in National Night Out, and we are so excited about that. That's due in part to these people in the audience here who have been such incredible supporters of this, who have just embraced this event and taken it forward. It's due to tremendous staff, tremendous volunteers, and we are so thankful for the community, for our sponsors, the Topeka Police Department, the Shawnee County Sheriff's Office, and the District Attorney's Office, and all of these fine people sitting behind us right here too. Without the support of all of you, this event would not be what it is, and we are so thankful for all of you.
Now, all the people with Safe Streets, National Night Out, please stand. All right, so we see the large effort. Congratulations. Thank you for what you do for the community and the local effort. This is one of the biggest events in the city, all over the city, and I know all the council members, the city manager, all of us will be participating. So we look forward to it, and thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for all your effort. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
There are no presentations this evening, so we'll proceed with the roll call.
Mayor Wolgast.
Here.
Council members Hiller.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Ortiz. Here. Everhart. Here. De La Isla. Manspeaker.
Here.
Schwartz. Here. Schmidt.
Here.
And Harmon.
There are no additions to the agenda this evening. However, on the consent agenda, the city clerk is requesting to withdraw item 4C, the July 1 council minutes, from the consent agenda and place them on next week's council agenda because they are not complete. Are there any, does any of the council members wish to protest? You have that pleasure. If not, then we will proceed with the clerk would read the consent agenda.
A is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Elisa Snavely to the Topeka Housing Authority Board of Commissioners to fill an unexpired term ending December 31, 2016. B is a resolution introduced by council members T.J. Brown, Karen Hiller, Denise Everhart, Nathan Schmidt, and Richard Harmon granting various neighborhood organizations exceptions to the provisions of City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 at C concerning noise prohibitions. C has been withdrawn and there are no applications.
Okay, that is the consent agenda. Mr. Harmon?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd move approval as read.
Mr. Harmon moves to approve the consent agenda. Mr. Schmidt seconds. Discussion. All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no.
We have 8 yes.
8 having voted yes, the consent agenda is approved. I'd like to take a moment to introduce Alicia Snavely. If you would stand, please, Alicia, who has been appointed to the Topeka Housing Authority. She is works at Burbridge Strahan, one of the department directors there. And also with her, I would introduce is John Johnston, who is also on the authority. Thank you very much for your service. We appreciate it. Okay, we will proceed then with the action items that the clerk would read. The first is a zoning ordinance.
A is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Jim Colson amending the district map referred to and made a part of the zoning ordinances by Section 1850-050 of the Topeka Municipal Code by providing for certain changes in zoning on property located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Southwest 17th Street and Southwest Jurish Road from RR1 Residential Reserve District to PUD Plan Unit Development District, C2 Commercial District, C4 Commercial District, M2 Multiple Family Dwelling District, and O&I2 Office and Institutional District Use Groups.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The subject parcel is a 75-acre property. Approval would allow for a mix of commercial, medium-density residential, and office uses on this property. I would like to ask Mr. Fyander, Planning Director, to provide information and answer any questions that you may have on this case.
Mr. Fyander.
Good evening. Thank you, your mayor and council. I would have a couple slides here. We'll walk through, and as I make the presentation for your information, as was mentioned, this is a property at 17th and Urish, 75 acres. It was annexed into the city back in March, consistent with our land use and growth management plan update that we were working on. The opportunity for development really opened up a couple of years ago when 17th Street was extended. The city, Menards, and this property owner all participated in that extension. And so we've been working with the owner, trying to do more of a master plan for this large tract as opposed to bringing in a piecemeal zoning applications where we really couldn't see how the pieces fit. So that's what you really have before you. Is you have a overall PUD that has really four areas. The main area and the main impetus for this is a residential, medium to high density residential area in the middle of 40 acres. Traffic study for the plan would allow up to 300 units or 7.5 units an acre. There's two commercial pieces. There's on the east edge, across from Menards, that's a C4 piece for 15 acres, and that's really kind of a bigger box type of a piece for regional commercial. When you go to 17th and Urish, you have the C2 commercial in the corner. That's more neighborhood oriented, more neighborhood retail oriented. And that does fit our spacing for every half mile. We do look at neighborhood commercial nodes on arterials. The road that would be put in, Kings Row, is an extension of, to the north. This is the only public road in the development. All other roads are private and would be maintained as private. The vision for this tract and for the area really is embodied in our current comp plan, as well as our update of our land use and growth management plan. And it calls for really three things that I look at. Number one, and this will differentiate it from other types of what I would call more sprawl type growth, which is one, it does call for medium to high density residential transitioning from this Wanamaker corridor area. This is our highest activity area, most traffic trips. You want to transition away, but also have as much density as possible transitioning away into the single family neighborhoods. We want development to follow the infrastructure. In this case, we have infrastructure in place and development should follow. We also looked at, when we annexed, whether or not the city could expand and provide all 5 services: water, sewer, roads, fire, police. And that was addressed during the annexation. So we believe this is also makes the city more compact. If you look at our patterns, you want to be more compact, you want to be more dense. This is not a linear, radially expanding out at a low density. This is right on the edge of our regional commercial. So, those principles, planning staff and planning commission believes are embodied in this project. Another important thing to note was there need to be a break from the regional commercial to neighborhoods west, and that's that C4 parcel. We left in a stream buffer, so we used the natural topography to really make that break so that there's no further basically big box developments going west of Menards and north of that or west of that piece. So you separate that out. So that's a very important critical transition point that this takes into place. The developer will build all roads at their expense. They will put in the sewer and water extensions. The traffic for the area, there was a traffic study that did look at levels of service on Kings Row, future Kings Row, 17th, Urish, and did confirm that they were all acceptable. We did limit the density under the conditions of this PUD to the duplex, triplex, and I have kind of a layout of that. That's a kind of conceptual graphic that was presented to the Planning Commission, the staff. But that represents a 7 unit an acre density. If they go beyond that, they're going to have to update their traffic study to show that it's not affecting the roads and that the roads can have adequate service levels. There was some opposing testimony during the public hearing process. Wanted to address that real quick. There was 3 owners that did file a legal protest that causes a supermajority vote here tonight. The main issues: traffic, stormwater, and sort of the unknown, what could go in here. Traffic, just addressed with our traffic study. The biggest, if there was a concern, looking at since 17th was built out, Urish. Urish is proposed to be widened and improved south of 17th by the county and by 2017. So we feel that that's planned to be in place. North of 17th, the developer would be responsible for any improvements to Urish if their development came before any improvement to Urish, north of 17th. So the trips that are being added to Urish are really insignificant. There's a couple hundred, which is less than 3%. So stormwater was the other thing. Stormwater, again, city standard, must retain and manage your stormwater runoff on site so that it does not impact neighbors. This is standard throughout any development in the city. And then lastly, sort of the unknown. As far as I mentioned at the top, this is a master plan. This is really, the zoning is being used as a planning tool to market and also make development more predictable. The C2 use on the corner of Urish and 17th is really, again, neighborhood oriented. So you're not looking at big boxes, you're not looking at outside stores, you're not looking at large signs, you're looking at something much more compatible with the neighborhood use. Planning Commission staff, again, made a recommendation of approval based on the conditions in the staff report, so we asked for a motion to approve. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Finder? Mrs. Ortiz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bill, what's the difference between a C2 and a C4?
C2, I'll try to give you some examples. C2, again, it's probably easier to explain what's not allowed in C2. C2 is mostly retail, and it's capped at a certain square footage for the building. Once you get above C2, now you start to get into things like home improvement centers and rental place, car lots, some outside retail, if you will, and it gets to be much more intense. But you could still in C2 do restaurants, you could do any sort of retail shop really before you graduate into more of the stuff that you would see along Wanamaker or any outside type of merchandise display. So C4 is much more intensive, much more.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Ms. Delispa?
Thank you, Mayor. Bill, I received several phone calls, as you could imagine, with regards to the development, and I have had the privilege of meeting with you to talk about the future plans of development of the city, and I know that those things have to be run by council, but I was very excited to see that there is a focus on working with our core and trying to be creative with regards to the growth. For the benefit of the public, could you just elaborate a little bit about how it was determined? Because I really like the approach of, if we're not gonna go ahead and we're gonna try to make sure that we can provide all services, but then at the same time that the core of our city is not gonna be neglected when we're looking at development and betterment of our communities, rather than just expanding out.
Sure. Exactly right. You know, I would categorize a lot of growth over the last 20, 30 years on the fringe as horizontal. It's gone horizontal, low density. And so what we want to do is, first of all, we want to recognize the most important and biggest priority for development would be within the existing city limits. That's first and foremost. You make that decision, but you also have to look at a balance of some potential expansion that still fits your parameters. Your parameters for smart growth, for well-planned communities, and for a prosperous community would be that the development follows the infrastructure. So if you do not want development to happen, do not put the infrastructure in there. You also want it to be compact. That is dense and compact. And you don't want to be growing in a low-density fashion outside the city. That is much more costly to serve, and it stretches us thin. It's probably not it is not as affordable. When we can develop more compactly and more densely next to where most of our traffic is currently, and we have all 5 services in place, that's key. And that was looked at during the annexation. Can we provide police, fire, roads, sewer, water under our current budgets, under our current service areas? As you know, in this area, we looked at that, and quite honestly, this is the one piece that fits that. It's the one piece that fits all those sort of principles. I have up on the screen, this is our working draft of our land use and growth management plan. The green, well, you see the subject property now. That was considered the next tier that should be brought into the city. It had the services. We had infrastructure in place or planned to be in place. When you get beyond that, it doesn't make as much sense right now. There has to be a major investment made, whether it's sewer, whether it's roads. So when we meet with developers and property owners, and they come, this is the sort of thing that we lay out on the table and say, look, we would not support development over here because of those things, because it does not make us more compact. It does not make us, we don't have the infrastructure in place, and we can't afford expanding our service footprint right now.
Okay, yes. Sure.
So I'm sorry, I hate doing this, of trying to put words in your mouth of what I'm hearing. But for, again, our constituency, this does not mean that we are not looking at our center. By no means.
No, I mean, this development obviously is something that is, could this, I've had this question, could this happen somewhere else? Should it be happening somewhere else? The bottom line is, you want density here. You don't want low density, you want higher density, you want it closer to the commercial center, lowers traffic trips throughout our community, cuts down on wear and tear on our roads, reduces costs for everybody involved if you can do it in a planned sort of way. So, I mean, I don't,
Thank you. Are there other questions for Mr. Finder? Mr. Manspeaker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not necessarily agree with the philosophy of everything is sprawl except this. We're building a new part of our city. We're creating part of our city where there wasn't part of our city. We're creating infrastructure where there was not infrastructure. We are growing our community by taking this action. And to say that it doesn't take away from some other part of the community makes us seem infinite, in which we are not. We're finite. And so any resource that we shift to any other part of a non-existing part of our community is taking away from some existing part of our community. So I understand the logic behind it. I think you guys have done a great job in trying to get the project to fit where it needs to be or what the vision is. It's just not my vision. So I will not be in the supermajority. Thank you.
Are there other questions for Mr. Finder? Seeing none, thank you. Council members, other discussion or your pleasure? Mr. Harmon?
Thank you. Is there a motion on the floor?
No, there is not.
Okay, I would move, move approval of the ordinance.
Mr. Harmon has moved approval of the ordinance, the zoning ordinance. Is there a second? Mrs. Ortiz seconds. And actually, the council members are aware, but as the public knows, as we said, this requires a supermajority. It requires 8 positive votes for passage. Any other discussion? Mr. Harmon?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just for the record, in deciding my vote, I have reviewed the City of Topeka Planning Department summary report that's attached to our packet, as well as the various protest petitions that have been filed. I've read the minutes of the Planning Commission on Monday, April 21st, 2014. I've also read the minutes to the Planning Commission meeting on Monday, May 19th, 2014. And I have also read the City of Topeka Planning Department memorandum dated May 9th, 2014, and the zoning report prepared by the Planning Department dated April 21st, 2014, which set forth various factors that have been enunciated by the Supreme Court in the drawing a total blank, not the Taco Bell case.
The Golden
The Golden case. Specifically, the character of the neighborhood, the zoning classification and uses of surrounding properties, the length of time the property has remained vacant as zoned or used for its current use under present classification, suitability of the property for the uses to which it has been restricted, conformance to the comprehensive plan, and the extent to which removal of the restrictions will detrimentally affect nearby properties, the relative gain to the public health, safety, and welfare by the destruction of the value of the owner's property as compared to the hardship imposed upon the individual landowner, the availability of public services, compliance with zoning and subdivision regulations, and the concerns of staff and reviewing agencies. I just wanted stated for the record that those are the factors and the criteria upon which I'm making my vote this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the ordinance, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. I vote yes.
We have 9 yes, Mr. Manspeaker voting no.
9 having voted yes. The ordinance is adopted. We proceed with the next action item is the final plat.
B is a final plat for Wrangler Ridge subdivision on property located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Southwest 17th Street and Southwest Urish Road.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is related to the previous item. Mr. Fyander is available to answer any questions that you would have. Approval would allow for the commercial and medium-density residential office subdivision.
Okay, thank you. And council members, as you know, the final plat is actually the approving the drawing that has gone through the planning and department. Do you have questions for Mr. Fyander? And your pleasure, Mrs. Hiller.
Just a quick clarification. At this point, that is a plat, but there are no immediate plans for development. So this will affirmatively set out a potential
Mr.
development scheme.
Councilmember Hiller, yes, this is these are the conditions under which a development can come along and build under. It dedicates the right-of-way for easements and for the road, and develops the lot lines and the conditions to build.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments, discussion? Your pleasure. Ms. Schwartz?
Move adoption.
Ms. Schwartz moves to approve. Mr. Harmon seconds. Discussion. All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no. I vote yes.
We have 9 yes, Mr. Manspeaker voting no.
9 having voted yes, the final plat is approved. We'll proceed to action item C, a joint memorandum.
C is approval of a joint memorandum of agreement concerning group healthcare cost sharing with the labor unions.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Approval of the 2-year agreement would set forth the cost-sharing formula for the city and individual employee contributions. I would like to ask Mr. Gerber to provide information and answer any questions on this item.
Thank you. Mr. Gerber?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager, thank you. By way of brief background on this issue, in March of this year, the city and the seven bargaining units for the city came together to negotiate cost sharing for healthcare, similar to what's been done in the past. The intent was to develop a tiered cost sharing model that included incentives for participation in various components of a wellness program. And to that end, these discussions resulted in a tentative 2-year agreement that you have before you tonight for your consideration, that incorporated an annual wellness plan, implementation of the clinic, and a cost-sharing component. Specifically, this agreement really lays out 4 things for your consideration. The first is an increase of the tobacco surcharge, second is a development of a wellness program that includes a clinic component for health plan participants. The third is that both parties agree to commence additional negotiations no later than September of next year to discuss cost sharing for 2017. And the fourth, which I'd like to spend just a little bit of time walking through with you, is development of a 2-tiered track for cost sharing percentages dependent upon whether or not you are a wellness participant. So you can see up on the screen and in your packet and what we passed out this evening, we have what's currently in place for our healthcare plan and then the proposals for both 2015 and 2016. The top is the proposals with wellness participation, and the bottom piece is the proposal for no wellness participation. Currently, for the employee-only tier, there's a 5%, the employee pays 5% of the premium plus a $25 monthly charge. Under the proposal, that would go to 5% plus $25 in 2015, and then 3% in 2016. So that $25 fee would continue for an additional year. For the dependent tiers, it's currently, the employee pays 41% of that cost, city pays 59%. with wellness participation, that would move to 38% for the employee in 2015 and 33 in 2016. And then additionally, you see the tobacco surcharge laid out there. It's currently 1% discount. That would move to a 5% and 7% surcharge in 2015 and 2016 respectively. And then you can see in the bottom couple lines, it lays out the percentages for no wellness participation. That for an employee-only plan, they would be responsible for 20% of the plan cost, plus a $25 fee in 2015, and then 25% in 2016. Then for the dependent tiers, that would go to a 55% cost share in 2015 and 58% in 2016, and then the tobacco surcharge remains the same. So with that, there's a very brief background and very brief overview, and with that, I would stand for questions.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Gerber? Mrs. Ortiz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to talk a little bit about the health wellness clinic. Can you kind of, I don't know, can you kind of tell me? This is to start it up, am I correct?
The intent and under the agreement, it would be started no later than the end of the third quarter of next year, 2015.
Will the city be, I mean, I think that's a good thing, but will eventually we'll take it over 100%, or how will that work?
There's an RFP process underway right now that's being developed, and so a lot of those details are yet to be decided, but the intent would be to have a third party run that for us. And in fact, that was reflected in the 2015 budget. There's monies put aside for that.
Do you know how much?
For 2015, it's $75,000.
That's coming out of the health wellness fund, correct?
Yes, Councilwoman Ortiz.
Okay. I guess, and like I said, I think it's a good thing. Maybe I just don't know enough about it. But I know, like at the state, we have Health Quest, I believe it is. And there's, if you're involved in that, you get a big savings, like you could up to like $480 a year. And what they try to do is try to help you, whatever you want to do, whether it's quit smoking, lose weight, or depression, or any of that. And so, have we looked into all of that? Is that what this clinic will do, this wellness clinic?
I think the intent of the clinic would be to play somewhat of that role, but also a minor healthcare role in terms of if you need to go there for aches and pains or the flu or some sort of wellness checkups. That would be the intent.
Okay. I don't have any other further questions.
Mr. City Manager, did you want to comment on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the comments, Councilmember Ortiz. As we've talked a couple of times in this setting, we believe that we need to make significant improvements in the benefit that we provide to our employees. And I wouldn't want to sit here and say that what we have is not, it has value to the employees, but I think that there's an opportunity for us to take a very close look at it as to how much we pay, what we get, and try to improve on both of those fronts. But as Mr. Gerber stated, we're at the beginning of this, and the thing that makes me pleased is we're asking the right questions and we're going to engage in the process, but I think we still have a lot of questions as to what can we really truly deliver to the employees and what the cost would be to us. So I think we're looking to start this process now, and this is the first step.
Yes. Go ahead.
So in starting this, we're trying to line everything up, am I correct?
You, go ahead.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Okay. And then after we line things up, then you'll come back for us for approval for this, that, or the other? I just want to make sure that we're getting everything that we need and what's best for our buck. We've lost a lot of employees because of the healthcare situation, which is nobody's fault up here at all. But in doing that, our numbers are down too, of people that, our employees that are I seen families that the kids went on with the mother and the fathers are still here working. And so we've lost a lot of that, and I know there's a whole lot, and I don't wanna rush it. I want us to do it, and I want us to do it right, or so we don't have to come back and make up any difference or anything like that. And I just feel real leery with, there's just a lot of I don't knows, and we're just starting it. And that's just where I'm at on it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mrs. Schwartz.
Thank you, Your Honor. As Councilwoman Ortiz indicated that it is, we're stepping into waters unknown. And I was a little concerned about that too, but after I went on the visit, I'm on the Wellness Committee, and Olathe, I brought back one thing, I know that Jackie probably has many more. Olathe calls theirs works well, and Salina, Pittsburgh, Olathe, Garden City, Overland Park have all gotten into these wellness programs way before us. And they have found really good outcomes. In fact, at Olathe, she tried to indicate that for every dollar that they put into it, out of their health fund, it's coming from the savings that we have from the employees and the city paying for the health insurance. But for every dollar they put in, she said they had a $9 return. Now, they couldn't validate that, but it is the clinic, along with the clinic and then the wellness program, they're really getting a handle on that rising cost of medicines, the use of medicines, and the rising cost of medical services, and it has brought down their insurance premiums. So today I sit here and support this wholeheartedly, because we need to get into a wellness clinic and a program that promotes good health.
And just to clarify again, actually, this is a joint memorandum, which is an agreement concerning our group healthcare cost sharing with the unions. And actually, if this should be approved, then we are setting up this process described here. That would be the premiums, the different costs to the employees, and also this would then, in a sense, determine the cost of the city. Is that a layman's overall description? Is that about right?
Mr. Mayor, that's an accurate summary. It lays out a couple of other things as noted, including the wellness piece and, setting a date for future discussions on this, in this regard. But the key piece is that cost sharing, yes.
Okay, all right. Other questions? Mrs. Hiller?
I wanted to follow up on Councilwoman Ortiz's question, because I'm not sure it got answered. Once the committee works further on the concept of how this clinic and wellness program would go, will that come back to this council? And if so, when are you expecting to do that? To whomever it should be addressed.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, the intent would be to bring that back before the council so that they could see the end product that we are envisioning. Yes.
Thank you, because I do have some observations, since this is a moment we can do it. I am concerned that it's not fleshed out now, but I understand that we need to get something moving for the budget and the contracts. But I want to express that concern nonetheless. When I read the things that are specifically in here, what I see is comments about the assessments, but not about performance. And I see comments only about how you would get dinged on your rate if you don't, it appears, aren't taking the prescriptions that are advised by the doctor. And I know that many of us look at, certainly if somebody's got to take heart medicine or they're diabetic and have certain medicines that they need to take, that's one thing. But many of us also get advised to take certain anti-cholesterol medicines, let's say, or other kinds of medicines that we might choose not to take, but instead work on diet or choose to work on more natural kinds of remedies. And I certainly would like to see that clarified a little more in terms of the options of the employees, as long as they're working to address the health issue, to be able to satisfy the plan. It's also, again, it talks about the clinic, but Councilwoman Ortiz mentioned the ongoing coaching, which has been a really successful element of a lot of other plans. And I don't see that mentioned in here yet. And maybe it's being considered, but in my experience, that has been a real key for people to actually improve their health. And third, I've asked for years about our wellness center and the issue of fitness and where that fits. It's not really addressed in the document that we have today. So both knowing exactly how that fits and what kinds of, whether things would just be suggestions, and maybe that's good enough for the results that Olathe had. I just don't know their system well enough to know, or whether there need to be other levels of measuring people's efforts to improve their health. Those are just all questions that I have. I am excited to see us get started, but I really do want to see that come back and allow time. I don't know if we have, you said it would be presented to us. I don't know if we get to adopt it or not. It's still not clear. But I'd like us to have a chance to have some input on it anyway. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions, comments? Mrs. Ortiz?
I guess I'll ask, I don't know, Jackie maybe, do you know who would be deciding what medicines or how that would work?
Yeah, Ms. Russell, would you want to?
And I don't know if
respond to
that
her
question is for you or whoever that question's for, because I cannot take generic on my blood pressure medicine. And so, you know,
And I guess that I'm not clear on the mandated prescription use. The TRIA Health is the prescription wellness arm of our current prescription program, and that would remain in place today. And there's a process if the employee's doctor, you know, fills out a thing that they can't use generics, then the
Okay.
brand names are, you can have authorization to use them. There's no plans to change that with what's set forth here. The agreement speaks to the recommended screenings and immunizations. That would be based on gender and age of the member. That would be the criteria that would be tied to the premium in 2016, in addition to having completed the health risk assessment and biometric screenings in the fall of 2015.
okay, thank you, Jackie. And then I guess this next question would be for the city manager. Our wellness center, I've worked with Mr. Green down there, a great trainer, excellent guy. But our equipment down there is crap. Have we looking into new equipment or replacing all of that? I mean, Jim's a great guy and he's repaired stuff and he's like, do this and do that. But at the end of the day, a lot of that is messed up. So even if somebody wanted to go down there and work out, there's a liability there. I mean, I think we need better equipment down there.
Would you want to comment on that, Mr. City Manager?
I just
yes.
didn't see it in the agreement anywhere. Are we looking at that, or did I miss something?
So, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Ortiz, as we go through this process of evaluating what the wellness center and the wellness approach looks like, one of the discussions will be location and the existing wellness facility that we have and how that would fit. In terms of the equipment itself, I think that would have to be addressed as we go forward. I don't think I can comment anymore. I'm not familiar enough with it to say anything.
Well, I am, because I do, and actually I'm getting ready to get with Mr. Green to get back on another plan. And another thing, have we looked at making him full-time? And I know he wears 2 different hats, but he's very great at the wellness. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
I can, Mr. Green is a full-time employee for the city, so.
But
Yeah.
wears 2 hats.
Yeah, I think he's halftime at the wellness center.
He's a halftime wellness center
Whatever,
and a
no.
halftime emergency management. Am I correct, Jackie? Or has that changed?
That changed a couple years ago. Our current wellness coordinator is a part-time position, and Maggie West is the wellness coordinator. And Jim Green has been full-time with Public Works Emergency Management for the past couple of years. Jim uses the facility and is still an internal resource, but he formally does not have that as a current responsibility.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Schwartz?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm sorry for my voice, my allergies are really bad today. With the RFP, we are contracting out to very expert providers in this area. Olathe has wins, there's Marathon, and there's many more that have been doing this for 12 years or more. Those people work with the primary care physician of each employee. And if there's any problems with medications or orders or whatever that may be, they would be working with the primary care physician of the employee. So it's not where it is not the medical home of the employee. This does not become the medical home. They still have a primary care physician. So, but they work hand in hand, and the one at Olathe and I think at the other cities are ARMPs that do the actual clinic itself. So I would try to, reduce your fears that that the city would be running this. The way the RFP is written, it is done by experts. We shouldn't be getting into that part if we don't have the expert way to do that. And so the RFP would go out for an outside provider to do this, but they would work with primary care physicians.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hiller?
I had a little clarification over my shoulder that I will share just because I misunderstood something or I misspoke. What the plan talks about is that your contribution is based on whether you've gotten immunizations that were advised, apparently not prescriptions. And what got me to thinking is that I, for instance, never get a flu shot because I know too many people have gotten sick taking flu shots. And so that again could be an option as to whether somebody wanted to do an immunization program, and I do hope that that is addressed. It doesn't say anything about the prescriptions, so.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions? Council, what is your pleasure on this item? We have no motion. Mr. Harmon?
Thank you, Your Honor. I moved approval of the joint memorandum of agreement.
Second.
Mr. Harmon has moved and Mr. Schmidt has seconded. Is there discussion? If not, all those in favor vote yes. Those opposed vote no. I vote yes.
We have 10 yes.
10 having voted yes, the joint memorandum is approved. I don't believe there are applications
Correct. None.
this evening. That completes our action items, and we have no discussion items for this evening, so we would proceed with the announcements. Mr. City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, I have no announcements this evening.
Mr. Harmon?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Okay, Mrs. Hiller?
I just wanted to send kudos out for Spirit of Candace. It was a wonderful event. Kudos to the county, Cap Fed, the Blues Society for the music, the folks that did the antique cars, and the folks that did things on the water. And I'm probably forgetting somebody, but it really was quite an event and well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown? Mrs. Ortiz? Let me, Mrs. Everhart and Mrs. Del Isla, Mr. Van Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank the neighborhood committee for the College Hill 4th of July festivities. The chairwoman, I believe, is sitting in the audience. My wife, Mrs. Manspeaker. Many nights spent coordinating that event, and we had a pretty good turnout, live band, using our park in a way that hadn't been used in a long time. And it's good to see young kids and the young people in our community be able to get out in our streets and enjoy themselves and have fun and smile and laugh and have a few carefree days. The other thing that's been on my mind for the last 24 hours was last night I was sitting on my front porch and witnessed a drive-by shooting. The people shot from the car directly to the house opposite of mine. I thought it was fireworks until I heard the shell casings hit the ground and make a distinctive clinking noise, in which case I went out to the street and saw them laying in the street. I have talked about crime, I've talked about crime, I've talked about crime. We have a problem. We all need to collectively wrap our minds around it and figure out how we solve it. It shouldn't matter that it's in front of my house. It's in front of lots of houses in our community, and we need to do something about it. It is not a matter of policing. We arrest criminals. It's a matter of preventative, and that's up to this body. So I would encourage you all to continue to give that strong thought. Thank you.
Mrs. Schwartz? Mr. Schmidt? That completes the announcements. We have one person who is signed for public comment, Joseph Ledbetter. Mr. Ledbetter?
Good evening, governing body. A couple items I want to get onto the record tonight. I have some photographs that I want to share with this body, and I'll be putting one of them into the record as I hand them out. What I have here is 4 photographs of impervious surfaces that are being charged stormwater runoff to one of my clients. There's one to pass around, and there's one for the record. The address is on the back. It's 418 Southeast 13th, taken June 23rd. Next photo shows more impervious surfaces, growing grass and weeds. Of course, we have rain this year, and this third shot is really luxurious. Thank you. One for the record. My client and I strongly disagree with the definition of impervious surfaces as it's applied to gravel and gravel mixed soil. This is the 4th one. These weeds are doing very well. These grass is doing very well. In fact, we've come up with a new term because impervious surfaces normally includes roofs, asphalt, and concrete. We've come up with a term called grassfault. And so we're glad to test that for the city and have that test plot, but we do not agree with being taxed or actually charged a fee for runoff that is not occurring. It's running into the ground and feeding a luxurious growth of weeds and grass, or grassfault. It really needs to be addressed. I've been talking about it for 2 years. There's been no movement. It has not been fixed. People should not be charged for that kind of a surface. It's ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous. The next item I want to put into the record is something I brought up several weeks ago. We got the 990, 2013 990s for Growth Organization of Topeka and the Greater Chamber of Commerce. And why this is relevant is because you all administer the JADO funds, or help. And I'm going to go ahead and put a copy of these into the record at the end of this talk. Last week, we were discussing sales tax and economic development. And I told you that economic development starts with going to work in the morning. It starts with owning your own business many times. It starts with showing the business people in this town, especially the small business people, the respect that they deserve, and listening to them and getting their input. And you'll be much more successful with economic development if you take in the ideas of those entrepreneurs. But when you subsidize an organization, we now have an organization that is not very effective, and it's not listening to the people, and it's not transparent at all. Last week, one of the people that came up and said 13 years was not enough time to tell their story with Ford Topeka, was one of the people who the week before had told the people who were complaining about the lack of transparency that they were simple-minded and their ideas and concerns were half-baked. Move for an extension.
Mr. Harmon?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Ledbetter, 2, 3 minutes.
3 minutes max, probably won't need it.
Motion to extend not to exceed 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
I will-
Mr. Schmidt, seconds. Discussion, all those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, you have an additional 3 minutes.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to put these 990s into the record because nobody in the future is going to say they didn't know about this. They didn't know about the $845,000 being transferred of public funds to the Chamber of Commerce. That they didn't know that Doug Kinziger was making $406,000 a year for his services, such as they are. And it's going to go into the record, and it'll be in the clerk's office, and everybody up here will now know about it. So one of the things that's almost amusing to me in the past, it's not very funny, is how many people claim they don't know these things that oversee these funds, but you're going to know about it of record. I think that 13 years is plenty of time to have a debate about whether something's working or not. But I do agree with the premise that there should be vigorous debate from all sides, not just one side, not just a one-sided discussion. But the people who have concerns be allowed to talk about it, be allowed to go to meetings, including go to Topeka's meetings, and raise these concerns on their record, and question if these kinds of things, these salaries, these bonuses, these transfers of money have actually been ratified by the boards? Because I would like to know. And I've asked those questions. I have not been given the answers. This morning, I talked to one of Go Topeka's officers, and I said, by the way, I'd like to know how much square footage the taxpayers are paying for in your office. I asked him this question about 3 months ago, and he still doesn't know the answer. But he said he'll look into it. I asked that at the JADO meeting, the last JADO meeting, and I was not given the answer, and I still haven't been given the answer. How many square feet are we paying for of rent that is $88,000 a year, according to their own documents? Now, these documents, just so that the people understand it at home, these are signed by Doug Kinziger under oath. So he is the CEO of both the Chamber of Commerce and Go Topeka. So he is swearing to the truth of these documents. So we'll just admit them into the record. Thank you. I appreciate your time, and I do believe that next week you're going to discuss again sales tax, and I think that Mr. Harmon's ideas are interesting. Don't know that I agree with them, but I think that should be debated. The length of time of that tax is way too long. That should be vigorously debated, and your JADO agreement needs to be vigorously debated, because I see some serious flaws in it, and I'd like you to address those on the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. I skipped over the clerk providing an overview of next week's agenda. If you would do that now, please.
For the July 15th agenda, next week on the consent, we have 2 tort claims and 2 noise exceptions. We have a resolution approving a special event for the Boys and Girls Club on August 16th. And then we will have the notice of public hearing for the 2015 operating budget. If that's approved, it will be set for August 12th, and it will authorize the notice of the publication in the Metro News. And then we'll have the action item discussion for the countywide retailer sales tax extension.
Okay, thank you. Council members, you've received notice the request for an executive session, which I would have the legal provide the background specifics for.
This would be a motion to recess into executive session to discuss attorney-client privileged matters relating to potential litigation for 15 minutes. In addition to the governing body, those members who would be necessary to facilitate the discussion would be the city manager and the attorneys. So if someone would make that motion.
Mr. Harmon?
So moved.
Mr. Galisco seconds. Is there discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no.
Ms. Everhart? We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the executive session is approved. So when the hall is cleared, we will begin the executive session. There will be no business handled after the executive session, although we will come back in to
Adjourn.
public session to announce the closing of the meeting.